If we remind ourselves of what Lehrer is trying to establish, it is that, if we go back to his premises, that if a statement is contingent, then there is always some chance that one is wrong in thinking it to be true. Well, why? Last time or the last video, we looked at certain ideas involving the necessity of the use of concepts in making knowledge claims. That is, I cannot be said to know anything until I apply a concept. And concepts are generally in a sort of metaphorical way, in this sense, thought of as what gives form to the raw data of sensory intuition. That is, I cannot actually make a knowledge claim or said to know anything until I have somehow or another employed a concept. And they can be simple concepts, the ones that we use to describe the world around us in everyday terms, or they can be quite complex concepts. So that's the first step, is that we need concepts to make knowledge claims, to make any statement, certainly. And if I say something as simple as the rose is red, I've employed a number of concepts in that statement. What is Lehrer's big point about concepts? Well, his big point is that concepts change, or our regard of concepts change. What I mean is that some concepts during human history, whether it's individual history or more, I think really what he's talking about is communal history, as in the history of science, the history of philosophy, the history of morality, perhaps. That concepts change over time, and that they get discarded. They get refurbished, they get altered, or they get altogether trashed and thrown away. What is he thinking of? He says on page 206, in the third paragraph on the page, he says, the stronger conclusion may be obtained by consideration of the implications of conceptual change. No matter how well entrenched a concept may be in our beliefs about the world, it remains always and constantly subject to total rejection. To obtain our objectives, scientific or other, we may discard a concept as lacking a denotation. That is, we may regard the concept, we used to think the concept actually applied to things. That would be the denotation, what the concept truthfully applies to. We may decide that the concept lacks any denotation at all. For instance, in the history of science, there used to be a notion, or in science, called phlogiston. And phlogiston was thought to be that substance that actually made things hot. That there was actually something inside things that were hot that was not inside things that were not. The modern notion of heat has to do with motion, molecules, and so the notion of phlogiston got totally discarded, and it was seen that there's nothing in the world that answers to the concept of phlogiston. It has no denotation. Any concept may be thrown onto the junk heap of discarded concepts along with demons, entelechies, and the like. For instance, the concept of a ghost. Now, people differ in their notions here, but I would say that is a concept that lacks denotation. There are no ghosts, literally. There are no spirits wandering around the earth of the dead that haunt people and things like that. Now, so that, you know, the ghost is in the attic could never actually be a true statement, because there are no such things as ghosts. The concept of ghost lacks denotation. In my mind, in my opinion. Other people may think differently, and that's fine. He describes this again, or argues for this again, on page 207 in the first full paragraph on that page. He says, the continual flux, the continual streaming change in our acceptance and rejection of concepts explains why there is some chance that any concept does not apply to what we think it does. Any concept is subject to revision or outright rejection. No concept is immune from the ravishment of conceptual change, leaving it without any application whatever. So I think what he's thinking is that it could turn out in the future that we decide that any concept that we employ might be erroneous, or might be empty, and might result in a false statement. Whatever contingent statement you think is true, there is some chance, some probability that a concept applied in that statement lacks application. Hence, there is some chance that you are wrong. However slender and not worth worrying about the chance error may be, it is real. The reality of that change is an objective feature of the world. So what is Lehrer telling us about knowledge claims? First of all, that all of them involve concepts, and that we couldn't make a knowledge claim without concepts. And secondly, that all the concepts that we use, even the most familiar and seemingly indispensable concepts that we use, and this is a very radical claim, I think, are things that in the future we may decide, we have to leave open the possibility at least, that in the future we may decide that those concepts are empty, that they have no denotation, that they're like ghosts or phlogiston, that they might have seemed at one time to apply to things in the world, but as it turns out, they do not. And what this means is that, I guess, we can never be totally sure of any contingent statement's truth, because the concepts that we employ to formulate that statement may turn out, upon further review, to be erroneous.